Chapter 1737. Zhuang Zongren held the soft little guy in his arms and coaxed him very patiently. Xiao Bao, don't be afraid. Come home with Grandpa. Grandpa will take good care of your mother. Grandpa also promises you that no one will separate Xiao Bao and Mom. Xiao Bao can always stay by Mom's side. Xiao Bao looked at the kind old man in front of him. His vigilant little face softened a lot and he nodded obediently. Seeing that the little guy responded to his words and even nodded, Zhuang Zongren was simply overjoyed. Okay, let's go home now. Zhuang Zongren was very strict with his children and juniors. In addition, he had been in a high position for most of his life. He had always been a serious and old-fashioned person. Usually, it was rare for him to smile in front of the juniors. But at this moment he was simply unbelievably gentle to Xiao Bao. Zhuang Rongguang was dumbfounded to see his grandfather holding Xiao Bao lovingly. He hurried to Zhuang Zongren. Grandpa, what's wrong with you? It's fine if you take cousin away. But why do you even bring this little brat, and this little brat along? Why do you bring him along for no reason? What happened to cutting off all relations with the Lu family? What's wrong with this little brat? Zhuang Zongren patted Xiao Bao's back and coaxed him while glaring at Zhuang Rongguang. Do I need your permission to do things? Don't make a fuss here. You're already here. Hurry up and go back to the army. Damn. You want to take this little brat home, but you want to drive me away. Am I still your grandson? Zhuang Rongguang felt so wronged. Dad, do you still care about this? Zhuang Liaoyuan pursed his thin lips and didn't say a word. He glanced in the direction of Lu Tingxiao with a gloomy expression. He didn't know what this brat said to his father. Actually, his father actually insisted on taking the child along with him. The point was not to take the child with him. But after this child was taken away, he would definitely have a bad relationship with the Lu family. Damn it, I still underestimated this brat. I will transfer Xiao Bao to the military sanatorium in the suburbs of the capital. As for Xiao Bao, I feel sorry for him because he is young and has a good relationship with Xiao Bao. I can't leave her now, so I will take him along. Do you have any objections? Zhuang Zongren looked at Lu Chongshan and Yan Rui. Although Zhuang Zongren's tone was inquiring, he didn't loosen his grip on Xiao Bao in the slightest. Clearly, he had already made up his mind. Lu Chongshan and Yan Rui looked at each other. They did not expect things to turn out this way and were caught in a dilemma. It was good that Xiao Bao and Ning Shi were not separated, but to let the Zhuang family take Xiao Bao away, why? Are you worried that the Zhuang family will harm your grandson? Zhuang Zongren's face turned serious. Lu Chongshan glanced at his son. He knew that this was the best outcome his son could hope for. Tingxiao must have his reasons for doing this. Moreover, a family like the Zhuang clan would definitely take good care of Xiao Bao since they had taken him in. Their worries were unnecessary. Lu Chongshan hesitated for a moment before saying, Elder Zhuang, you're being too serious. We're just worried that Xiao Bao will cause you too much trouble. Not at all. Zhuang Zongren immediately made the decision. Since there are no objections, then this matter is decided. I have no opinion no matter who says it. Zhuang Rongguang's voice was completely ignored. Chapter 1738. Lu Tingxiao personally escorted her all the way to the military sanatorium in the suburbs of the capital. The sanatorium here was only accessible to the country's senior leaders or their family members. All the medical facilities were top-notch, and most importantly, there were elite troops stationed nearby, so it was absolutely safe and secretive. Lu Tingxiao bent over and planted a kiss on the girl's forehead. After staring at her for a long time, he stood up and said to his son, Xiao Bao, stay with Mom and listen to Uncle Zhuang and Grandpa Zhuang, okay? Xiao Bao stood there with his head lowered and didn't say a word. I'm leaving. Xiao Bao still didn't move or respond. Lu Tingxiao sighed inaudibly, patted the little boy's head with his broad palm, and turned to leave. He had only taken a few steps when one of his legs suddenly gave way. Lu Tingxiao looked down and saw his son hugging him tightly, looking up at him without making a sound, but his little face was already full of tears. Yes, he hated Dad. He had always hated him, but he didn't want Dad to leave. Looking at his son's crying face, Lu Tingxiao felt as if his heart had been gnawed by countless aphids. He hurriedly squatted down and held his son's little body in his arms. Learning from Ning Shi's usual way of comforting Xiaobao, he patted him gently in a flurry. Don't cry. What's wrong? Zhuang Zongren, who was standing at the door, felt a slight sting in his eyes. He hurriedly walked over and comforted him. Xiaobao, don't cry, don't cry. It's not like Dad won't come back after leaving. Your dad can come and visit you and Mom at any time. Grandpa promises. Sigh, he was still a child after all. He had just experienced such a huge blow. His mother, who was closest to him, might never wake up again in order to save him. Now that his father was about to leave, how could he not panic when he was suddenly in a completely unfamiliar environment? Looking at the little boy crying silently, Zhuang Zongren was so distressed that he didn't know what to do. He blurted out, sigh that, Ting Xiao, why don't you stay here for the night? This suite is very big, and it's big enough for you to stay. Stay with Xiaobao until he gets used to the environment. Don't be in such a hurry to leave. What's more important than the child? Do you hear me? Lu Tingxiao was at a loss as to what to do with Xiaobao. He nodded subconsciously. Yes. Not only did he bring the child with him, but now he even allowed Lu Tingxiao to visit at will and even let him stay? Zhuang Liaoyuan, who was at the door, couldn't get a word in. Before he could stop it, he had already watched the situation develop to this point. He sighed helplessly with a dark face. Lu Tingxiao left the next morning. When he returned to the Platinum Gold Rank Palace, there were already 5 skinny men in black uniforms waiting in the study room. Unlike the 5 of them, Tang Lang was dressed in colorful clothes. His hair was messy and curly. He was lying on the sofa casually. He looked rather dispirited. In front of the desk, the man spoke with a frosty expression. Tang Lang will be the commander-in-chief of this operation. Do you have any objections? The 5 of them answered in unison. Tang Lang raised his hand, the corners of his mouth twitching as he muttered, Me? Commander-in-chief? Lu Tingxiao gave him a sidelong glance. Is there a problem? No problem at all. Boss, you really know how to use people. The dispirited look on Tang Lang's face was swept away, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. I will not disappoint you. Chapter 1739. In Lin Jiji's office at Shengshi Entertainment, Xiao Tao knocked on the door and came in breathlessly. Sister Jiji, I've searched Brother Shi's home and all the places he might be, but I still can't find him. None of them. Lin Jiji's face darkened. Ning Shi had been shooting one movie after another these days and had barely had a break. After the shooting of Thunderbolt, Lin Jiji gave Ning Shi a small holiday so that she could have a good rest. Although it was a holiday, she had told Ning Shi to keep her phone number and other contact information open, just in case there was something urgent. Ning Shi had always been very considerate in this regard and wouldn't let Lin Jiji worry about her. Unexpectedly, something went wrong this time. She had asked Xiao Ta to call Ning Shi and have her post on Weibo to promote the show and increase the ratings. However, Ning Shi's phone was not connected to the landline at home. Xiao Tao was worried and went to Ning Shi's house to look for her, but she didn't find her. She didn't even see her at the places she frequented. Xiao Tao wiped her sweat. Yes, I've looked everywhere. What should we do now, Sister Jiji? Did something happen to Brother Shi? Nonsense. Oh. Xiao Tao immediately shut up and then her eyes lit up. She suggested tentatively, Sister Ji, there's someone who can definitely contact Brother Shi. Big Boss. Xiao Tao blurted out. Shall we call Big Boss and ask him? Lin Jiji narrowed her eyes. That person was too special and she was just a small agent. It was inappropriate to call him directly and ask about Ning Shi's whereabouts. Lin Jiji thought it over and over again and dialed a number. The phone rang 7 or 8 times before it was finally picked up and a sleepy voice said, Agent Lin, if you don't have a reasonable reason to wake me up, Ning Shi is missing. Do you have any way to contact her? Lin Jiji asked straightforwardly. The other end of the phone was silent for 2 seconds and then the man's voice sounded much more sober. What do you mean by Ning Shi is missing? Tonight is the premiere of 9 Clouds. I was going to ask her to post on Weibo, but her phone and phone are not connected and there's no one at home or at the places she frequents. Lin Jiji quickly explained the situation. This guy? Is he hiding somewhere to drink again? You didn't even invite me to drink with you. Jiang Mai mumbled. Ningxi is not a person who doesn't know her limits. Lin Jiji said. Come on, have you forgotten that she almost caused a riot in the bar last time? Jiang Mai directly revealed the truth. I'm just worried that something might have happened to her, don't think too much. Even if something happens, it'll be someone else, okay? Jiang Mai was speechless. Hearing Lin Jiji's anxious tone, he said generously, all right, let me help you. All right, I'll have to trouble you to check if she's with Boss Lu. Oh. As soon as Jiang Mai finished speaking, he suddenly froze. What the hell? How did you know about her relationship with my uncle? That's not the point. Why isn't it heavier? I'm still counting on this matter to get hold of that damned girl's weakness. She's just afraid that you'll find out. We can't play anymore. Jiang Mai said with a pained tone. Lin Jiji was speechless. Chapter 1740. After Jiang Mai hung up the phone with Lin Jiji, he ran next door in his pajamas and slippers without even changing out of his pajamas. Where else could that girl go? Other than filming, she was either making dog food or showing off dog food. When he reached the entrance of Lu Tingxiao's villa, a man suddenly ran over in a hurry. He didn't even look at where he was going and bumped into him. Oh my God! What are you doing? Why are you in such a hurry? Lu Jingli picked up the pile of documents on the ground and asked hurriedly, I have something to discuss with my brother. Why are you here? I'm looking for Ning Xiaoxi. Lin Jiji just called and said that she couldn't get in touch with her. Jiang Mai answered. Hearing Ningxi's name, Lu Jingli's expression changed and he suddenly froze. Jiang Mai frowned when he saw Lu Jingli's expression change. What's wrong? Lu Jingli pinched his eyebrows and didn't know what to say. Too many things had happened recently. The whole Lu family was in a mess and everyone was busy. The Zhuang family had just settled the matter and there were still many things to deal with. For example, the most important thing was Ningxi's work. It was very tricky. Ningxi was in such a state and no one knew when she would wake up. What about her work? How was she going to explain it to her fans and the media? Jiang Mai had never seen Lu Jingli with such a serious expression. His expression changed immediately. Second uncle, what's wrong? Did she break up with my uncle? Lu Jingli took a deep breath and then said, Little Cici, something happened to Xiaobao. Xiaobao was kidnapped. She was seriously injured in order to save Xiaobao. She didn't wake up after the operation. Jiang Mai's expression suddenly became blank. He didn't expect something to happen to Ningxi. What do you mean she didn't wake up? Jiang Mai's voice trembled slightly. She's in a deep coma and in a vegetative state. She's currently on a ventilator. How could this be? How could this be? When did this happen? Jiang Mai still couldn't believe the fact. She was rescued the night before yesterday. The operation was completed yesterday morning. Now she's been sent to the military sanatorium in the suburbs of Beijing. Jiang Mai stood there in a daze. He opened his mouth but couldn't say a word. The Lu family had sealed off all news of this. How could he only find out about such a huge matter now? Brother. Lu Jingli saw Lu Tingxiao walk out of the house. Lu Tingxiao took the documents from Lu Jingli's hands. At the same time, a black car stopped in front of the door. Lu Tingxiao quickly got into the car and said, Go pick up Lin Jiji and Xiao Tao. Send them to the sanatorium. I'll be there soon. Hearing that, Jiang Mai hurriedly said, Uncle, let me go and pick them up. Lu Tingxiao glanced at him and didn't refuse. Lu Jingli patted Jiang Mai on the shoulder. Mai, sorry to trouble you. Also, remember to keep it a secret. We still have to discuss what to do about this matter. Try not to affect little Cici's work. Jiang Mai nodded blankly. After the car left, Jiang Mai was still standing there blankly. After a long time, he wiped his face and dialed Lin Jiji's phone in a hoarse voice. Jiji, where are you and Xiaotao now? I'll pick you up. Chapter 1741. in the military sanatorium on the outskirts of the capital. A black Maybach and a silver Ferrari stopped at the gate at the same time. "Uncle, I've brought her here." "Boss Lou." "Boss." After greeting each other, they walked towards the sanatorium together. Xiao Tao stared at the place in front of her, only to see guards with guns stationed at the gate. There were also guards on the high sentry post. Isn't this the legendary military sanatorium? It said that only important officials or relatives of the central government may recuperate here. Why is Brother Shi here? Is it arranged by Boss Lu? After arriving at the gate, Lu Tingxiao made a phone call. "I brought a few people with me, hoping to see Xiaoxi. They are Xiaoxi's agent and assistant, who must properly deal with some problems related to Xiaoxi's work, so they need to know about this matter." After a short conversation, someone walked out of the room. It was a young officer. After seeing the officer, the guards at the gate saluted together. "Colonel Lin." "Well, open the gate and let them in." "Boss Lu, please." Lin Qian led them into the sanatorium. The entrance was only the first floor. It took about 10 minutes of walking, passing through several sentry posts, before finally reaching a row of red brick buildings hidden in the dense forest. If it wasn't for Lin Qian leading, normal people definitely wouldn't have been able to enter this place. Because it was not suitable for too many people to enter together, Lin Zhizhi, Jiang Mai and others could only stand outside the glass window and watch. There used to be a lovely little girl. Everyone liked her, but her grandmother liked her the most. She gave her whatever she wanted. Once, her grandmother gave the little girl a little red hat made of velvet, which was just right for her. From then on, the ward echoed with the soft voice of a child. Lu Tingxiao quietly looked at the girl and Xiaobao in the ward, and his cold face slightly melted. Lu Jingli was also moved. Xiaobao spoke. In the warm sunshine, a quiet little boy, holding a book in his hand, was sitting quietly at the head of the bed, reading a story in a soft voice, like an angel. The girl beside him was lying quietly on the bed, her entire body covered in bandages. Beside her was a complicated apparatus with countless tubes and wires connected to her body. With just one glance, Jiang Mai couldn't stand it anymore. He hurriedly hid the embarrassment in his eyes, turned around and rushed out. Lin Zhizhi's face was also full of pain. When they were in the car, Jiang Mai only vaguely told her that it was very serious, but after seeing it with her own eyes, she still couldn't believe that it was so bad. Xiao Tao stood beside Lin Zhizhi in a daze. Her face was pale and her body trembled violently. "Brother Shi, Miss Lin, how long can you last?" Lu Tingxiao went straight to the point. Lin Zhizhi took a deep breath to calm herself down, then replied, "To be honest, I'm not sure. This will depend on the reaction of the fans. In the future, Ning Shi's 3 dramas, Ninth Heaven, Mother, and Thunderbolts will be released one after another, and Ning Shi's popularity will reach a peak. Especially during this period of time, Ning Shi will be most active in the publicity period of her films. She is also the leading actress, and almost all the publicity activities need her to attend. Under such circumstances, if Ning Shi doesn't show up for a long time, it's okay if she doesn't show up once or twice. But as time goes by, the fans and the media will definitely be suspicious." Lin Zhizhi said with an embarrassed look, "I'm afraid. I can't last long." Chapter 1742. Hearing Lin Zhizhi's words, the atmosphere suddenly became more oppressive, and everyone's face became solemn. Everyone knew how much Ning Shi loved her career and how much she had sacrificed for it, so they naturally tried their best to protect her most precious thing for her. Lu Tingxiao quietly looked at the girl behind the glass window. After a long silence, he said, "If Xiaoxi still hasn't woken up in 3 months, her real situation will be announced." Lin Zhizhi nodded. The time limit that Lu Tingxiao had given her was the longest time she could delay it. "During this period of time, I will manage Ning Shi's social media accounts for her and try my best to stall for time and maintain her popularity. It would be best if Ning Shi could wake up, but if the situation is really out of control, I will arrange a press conference and prepare a reasonable explanation to explain Ning Shi's situation to the fans." Lin Zhizhi was very clear that the possibility of Ning Shi waking up was very slim, But even if there was only a glimmer of hope, she had to try. Fortunately, Ningxi was living in the military sanatorium. No place could be more private than here, which could block all interference and information disclosure. But what on earth happened? Why did Ningxi suddenly get so seriously injured? Lin Jiji sensitively sensed that there might be a lot of secrets of the rich and powerful, so she cautiously didn't ask more. As Ningxi's agent, she only needed to know that she would do everything to protect everything Ningxi had worked so hard for. Lu Tingxiao nodded and agreed to Lin Jiji's arrangement. Then he gave Lin Jiji his private number. Call me directly for anything related to Xiaoxi. Lin Jiji nodded. At this moment, she suddenly understood why a free and unrestrained girl like Ningxi would choose this man in front of her. With Lu Tingxiao's status, if he liked a person, he could keep her in captivity, give her everything, and let her follow his preferences and identity. However, Ningxi had been dating Lu Tingxiao for so long without her knowing. Ningxi even told her in private that Kamingyu was Lu Tingxiao. This man loved her but never forced her to do anything. Instead, he accompanied her, respected, indulged, and protected everything about her. While Lin Jiji and Lu Tingxiao were discussing some details, Xiao Tao had been staring blankly at Ningxi behind the glass window with a pale face. Brother, is it possible for him to wake up? When will he wake up? Will he wake up in 3 months? Xiao Tao asked anxiously. Lu Jingli replied dryly, that's not necessarily true. Even doctors don't know when she'll wake up, and, if she'll wake up, are you saying that brother she may not wake up for the rest of his life? Xiao Tao's body trembled even more violently. Lu Jingli smiled bitterly. I can't rule out this possibility. Lu Jingli's words were like a switch. Xiao Tao's expression suddenly collapsed. She held her tear-stained face and knelt down in the direction of Ningxi. She burst into tears. Brother Shi, I'm sorry. It's all my fault. It's all my fault. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Seeing Xiao Tao suddenly lose control of her emotions and kneel on the ground, Lin Jiji was stunned. She quickly turned around to help her up. Xiao Tao, what's wrong? Chapter 1743. Seeing Xiao Tao's reaction, Lu Jingli and Lu Tingxiao looked at each other and didn't say anything. They looked calm, as if they had expected this. Xiao Tao, get up. Xiao Tao shook her head and pushed Lin Jiji away. She insisted on kneeling. No. Sister Jiji. I won't get up. It's all my fault. It's all my fault. Brother, she was so nice to me, but I made him like this. Xiao Tao, calm down. What's going on? Lin Jiji's expression became more serious. Xiao Tao was very emotional and kept repeating, it's all my fault. Lin Jiji comforted her for a long time, and Xiao Tao finally calmed down a little. She sat there in a daze and said in a trembling voice, I knew it. I knew it a long time ago. I knew someone wanted to hurt Brother Shi secretly. They wanted to kill Brother Shi. 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 What? Someone wanted to hurt Ningxi? How did you know? Lin Jiji asked hurriedly. Xiao Tao choked with sobs. Because they found me a long time ago. When we were filming in Chuan City, that gun. I was the one who exchanged it for that gun. I was the one who replaced the fake gun with a real one. What did you say? Lin Jiji was stunned when she heard Xiao Tao's words. She didn't expect that the person they hadn't found out last time would be Xiao Tao. Lu Jingli looked at Xiao Tao, who was kneeling on the ground, and sighed softly. They had been investigating who had changed the gun, but they couldn't find out who it was. It was as if the real gun had been changed out of thin air. But how could this be possible? Then, there was only one possibility left. This was done by Ningxi's closest and most trusted person. That was why it was possible to change the gun without leaving any trace. Xiao Tao was the most likely person to have been by Ningxi's side at that time and had a chance. I almost killed Brother Shi last time. Luckily, Brother Shi was good at martial arts. I thought that those people wouldn't dare to take risks again after they failed this time, so I didn't say anything. He didn't warn Brother Shi. I didn't expect Brother Shi to become like this. Sister Ji, I'm sorry. Boss Lu, I'm sorry. It's all my fault. Boss Lu, please arrest me. Xiao Tao lay on the ground and looked at Ning Shi, who was lying on the bed covered with wounds, and cried even harder. Lu Tingxiao glanced at the girl on the bed with a serious look. When he found out that it was Xiao Tao, he was worried that Ning Shi wouldn't be able to accept it, so he didn't tell her for the time being. Instead, he sent someone to keep an eye on Xiao Tao. What was certain was that the people who had instructed Xiao Tao to kill Ning Shi were not the same people as Xiao Yi. Xiao Tao didn't understand the situation. She thought that Ning Shi's injury was also caused by the person who had instructed her before, so after seeing Ning Shi like this, she suddenly broke down. She felt that she had hurt Ning Shi and revealed everything under extreme self-blame. He had purposely asked Xiao Tao to come over today because he hoped that she would confess herself. Xiao Tao, why are you doing this? Who told you to do this? Lin Zhizhi asked anxiously. Xiao Tao's face was full of horror. Sister Zhizhi, you know that I have a younger brother who is studying in a university in China. Those people kidnapped my brother and threatened me. They said that if I didn't do what they told me, they would kill him. I don't know who they are. I only know that they spoke in English and there was a translator next to them. I don't think they are Chinese. Chapter 1744. Did those people look for you after that? Lu Jingli asked. That's all. But they said they would have something for me to do at any time. They're probably waiting for an opportunity to strike. They even threatened me not to tell anyone. Otherwise, my brother might be in danger. The reason why Xiao Tao had revealed everything today was partly because she had felt extremely guilty after seeing Ning Shi like this. She had broken down emotionally. On the other hand, it was also because she knew that this place was absolutely safe that she completely let down her guard and said those words. Thinking of Ning Shi, Xiao Tao sobbed again. Big brother, she is so good to me and trusts me so much. He never doubted me from beginning to end. Other artists always order their assistants around and even beat or scold them when they're in a bad mood, but Big Brother, she has always been so gentle to me. Every time there's something delicious or fun to do, she thinks of me. I'm the assistant, but she's always afraid that I'll be tired. She doesn't even let me do the dirty work. Working with elder brother, she is my happiest time. If possible, I really hope that I can accompany elder brother Shi to the end. But there would be no more chances. Hearing Xiao Tao's words, Lin Zhizhi didn't know what to say. Although it was hard to believe that the person who betrayed Ning Shi was the person she trusted the most, she couldn't blame Xiao Tao. Xiao Tao took a deep breath and stopped crying. She looked at Lu Tingxiao and pleaded, Boss Lu, I'm sorry for brother Shi's care and trust in me. I'm sorry for the company. But I'm afraid that those people will fly into a rage out of humiliation after hearing the news from my side. Something will happen to my brother. I know you're resourceful and you can punish me however you want, but can you help my brother? For a moment, everyone looked at Lu Tingxiao. Lu Tingxiao said, I won't punish you. You're Xiaoxi's woman. Even if I punish you, it's up to her. As for your brother, if you trust me, I will guarantee his safety. But the prerequisite is that you must listen to my arrangements. Lu Jingli explained, what I mean is that you will pretend that nothing happened today and continue to keep in touch with them. Then you will be our spy. If there is any movement on their side, you must inform us immediately. Xiao Tao had already prepared for the worst, but she never expected that this would be the result that awaited her. Knowing that Lu Tingxiao was giving her a chance for the sake of Ning Shi, Xiao Tao burst into tears again and nodded repeatedly. I can cooperate with you to do everything you want, as long as I can make up for my mistakes. Others can touch your brother, but I can too, Lu Tingxiao added with a frosty expression. It was obvious that he didn't trust anyone. Xiao Tao's back immediately trembled, and her body trembled like a sieve. I understand. She knew that she had betrayed Ningxi once and could not be trusted. She completely understood President Lu's actions. Rather than being on tenterhooks all day long, it was better to trust President Lu. Even if President Lu held her hostage, it was better than being threatened by those people. Lin Zhizhi was slightly relieved to see how Lu Tingxiao dealt with it. This should be the most appropriate way. Ningxi was in a special period now. If she suddenly changed her assistant who had been working for so long, it would cause too much noise. If it was someone else, it would be difficult to explain to the other party, and she wouldn't be able to use her at ease. Chapter 1745. Seeing the terrible atmosphere, Lu Jingli coughed lightly and tried to smooth things over. Since we've talked it over, it's settled. Brother, don't keep a straight face. Do you know that you make me wet my pants? You're so close to sister-in-law that your aura will affect her. Hearing the last sentence, Lu Tingxiao's expression softened a little. They left the ward and walked into the yard. Jiang Mai was squatting under a big tree. His eyes were red and it seemed that he had just cried. Seeing them come out, Jiang Mai got up and walked over to Lu Tingxiao. Can I talk to her alone for a while? Lu Jingli's mouth twitched. How could it be possible? No. Sure enough, just as he thought about it, Lu Jingli heard his brother's reply. Jiang Mai clenched his fists. Then Lu Tingxiao added, Xiaobao is here. Hearing that, Jiang Mai hurriedly said, Xiaobao is here. It's fine. Lu Tingxiao didn't say anything and just walked away, which meant that he acquiesced. Jiang Mai rushed into the ward. Jiang Mai is an idiot. Lu Jingli shook his head, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. How could Xiaobao be fine? This guy was probably going to tell Ningxi his love, in front of Xiaobao. Just the thought of that scene made him sad. Lin Zhizhi glanced at the back of Jiang Mai, who rushed into the ward, and a look of understanding appeared on her face. Regretted it. Most of the time, people would only regret and hate when they lost something. Why didn't they say something or do something? In Ningxi's ward. Xiaobao had just finished reading the story of Little Red Riding Hood to Ningxi. He frowned when he found that someone had interrupted him. Jiang Mai hurriedly explained, I just want to say a few words to her. Your father agreed. Xiaobao didn't speak, nor did he pay attention to him. He continued to sit there quietly. Jiang Mai coughed lightly and said tentatively, So, little grandpa, can you leave for a while and let me talk to her alone? Upon hearing this, Xiaobao's originally indifferent expression immediately turned cold, and the air in the entire ward became several degrees colder. Jiang Mai was embarrassed. He finally understood why Lu Tingxiao had said Xiaobao is here. Okay, I won't avoid it. You don't have to leave. Jiang Mai thought that he was just a child and didn't know anything, so he didn't care that he was here. He dragged a chair and sat down on the edge of Ningxi's bed. Up close, the injuries on the girl's body were even more frightening. There was not the slightest trace of vitality in her body, as if all her life force had been sucked out. Jiang Mai wiped his face and looked at the girl lying motionless on the bed. Buzzard, didn't you say that we would go out together? After saying this, he buried his head in the ground. After a long time, Jiang Mai murmured bitterly, If I had known, I wouldn't have cared so much. I don't care what you think of me. I don't care who you like. I like. Before Jiang Mai could finish his words, a gust of whistling north wind locked onto him. Then, as soon as he calmed down, he saw a fair and tender little bun staring at him like a dragon guarding its treasure. That little gaze was so fierce. Chapter 1746. He was wondering why a certain someone trusted him enough to meet Ningxi, so he was waiting for him here. In the end, under little Tyrannosaurus gaze, Jiang Mai couldn't utter those words no matter what. He slumped his shoulders and sat there, looking as if he had nothing left to live for. Fuck, did I tear down the moon god's temple in my past life? This marriage line was too cruel. Late at night, at the border of country F, Tang Lang plucked a blade of grass from somewhere and held it in his mouth. He turned to the person beside him and said, The target's defense is at its weakest right now. The only person we need to pay attention to is the one wearing glasses. I'll go and seduce that guy later. No, seduce him. The man in black beside him. What's the difference between seducing and seducing? The man in black said uncertainly, Are you sure we have enough people? I think it's too risky. They're dealing with firearms, what if the other side? Don't worry, didn't boss say that the other side won't interfere this time? Don't be afraid, just do it. Tang Lang said confidently. Actually, he was very worried at first, but since Lu Tingxiao said it was fine, he believed that it would be fine. It wasn't that he trusted Lu Tingxiao blindly, but he really couldn't believe it. For example, last time, who would have thought that Lu Tingxiao would call Satan at a critical moment? In the end, Satan actually reported his precise location and obeyed him. Based on his understanding of Satan, he trusted Lu Tingxiao's judgment. After Tang Lang finished speaking, he took out his phone unhurriedly and sent Tang Yi a text message. I'm in the forest 800 meters away from your 10 o'clock direction. I can tell you the answer to the question you asked me last time. Are you coming over? Almost as soon as he sent the message, Tang Yi immediately replied with a single word. Okay. Tang Lang saw a familiar figure walking out of the house and smugly gave the person behind him an cake sign. Done, let's do it. In the dark of the night, a group of people quietly approached the building in front of them, in the forest. When Tang Yi came over, Tang Lang was sitting on a thick and solid branch of an uncle. When he saw the person approaching, he jumped down. Yo, you're here. So fast. The answer. Tang Yi looked at the man in front of him expressionlessly. Tang Lang shrugged and said, You already know, right? Why ask me again? I want to hear it from your own mouth. Tang Ye's gaze became even sharper. Okay, I said it myself. Fight first? I'll tell you when I win. Tang Lang said and immediately attacked. Tang Ye's expression didn't change. He moved slightly and dodged the attack. Then, the two of them began to fight. After 10 moves, Tang Lang looked at the gold-rimmed glasses on his opponent's face, and a trace of fire flashed in his eyes. TSK, you actually didn't take off your glasses. Are you looking down on yours truly? After saying that, his moves became even more ferocious. After 100 moves, Tang Lang's wails rang out in the forest. Fuck. Tang Yi, you pervert. It really was a super freakish physique that became stronger when encountering strong opponents. It had only been a short while since they last met, but he was actually able to fight to a draw with him without taking off his glasses and without going berserk. Once Tang Yi entered battle mode, he would not be distracted at all and would not notice anything happening in the outside world. And this was exactly what Tang Lang wanted. It was unknown how many moves they had exchanged. Tang Lang looked at the secret signal of success not far away and his expression immediately relaxed. And at this moment his lifeline was grabbed by Tang Yi. Tang Lang suddenly approached the other party, but he didn't attack. Instead, he hugged the other party and whispered in the man's ear, Senior brother, I'm sorry. Hearing this, Tang Yi suddenly woke up from his battle state. His expression changed drastically as he looked towards a direction not far away. Tang Lang. Seeing that Tang Lang was about to rush over, Tang Lang's voice was slightly cold. There's no need to go, the person has already been taken away. Senior brother, don't blame me. I said before, I don't want to be enemies with you. This is the only way I can think of. Chapter 1747. Villa in the suburbs of Beijing, China. Feng Jin clutched the gunshot wound on his body as he stumbled into a dark room. Satan! Uncle Qiao has been kidnapped by Lu Tingxiao's men. Hurry up and send someone to save him. Otherwise, it'll be too late. If he falls into Lu Tingxiao's hands? Inside the large sandalwood chair, the silver-haired man's expression did not change in the slightest. He tilted his head, picked up the teacup on the table, and took a sip unhurriedly. Then he raised his indifferent eyes and said faintly, What does it have to do with me? Feng Jin's expression froze. His expression was filled with despair as he said agitatedly, Satan, Uncle Qiao was at fault for hiding the truth from you, but everything Uncle Qiao did was for you. No matter how angry you are with him, you can't just watch him die. Feng Jin's face turned pale as the man's piercing gaze swept over him. He suddenly stopped talking and swallowed the rest of his words. Master, just for the sake of him being by your side for so many years, even if he didn't contribute much, he still worked hard. Heh, now you're trying to act pitiful in front of me? Why didn't you remember that I'm your master when you treated my words as bullshit? Feng Jin had a history of pretending to agree but secretly disagreeing. Faced with the other party's anger, he could only bite the bullet and continue to plead. Just for the sake of your mother. Yunshin's expression turned even colder when he heard Feng Jin mention his mother. Who gave you the wrong impression that I have such a good temper? That I would give opportunities to disobedient people time and time again? Feng Jin panicked when he saw that the other party was determined to let Xiao Yi fend for himself. Uncle Xiao knows so much about us. If he falls into Lu Tingxiao's hands, the consequences will be unimaginable. The Black Dragon is the best example. Previously, they thought that the Black Dragon really did not say anything. In the end, they discovered that all their underground channels had been exposed, putting them in an extremely passive position. They were caught off guard and lost a large number of their men. Yunshin's expression was tainted with impatience. I ordered him to stop all those things a year ago, but what did you do in secret? Do you really think that I don't know anything? If we really cut off those businesses, it would be equivalent to cutting off an arm. How are we going to fight against the Lu family then? This is Lu Tingxiao's plan to sow discord. Don't fall for it. If Uncle Xiao really dies, the organization will be in turmoil. Have you thought about it? After Lu Tingxiao finishes dealing with Uncle Xiao, you will be next. Is that so? I look forward to it. Feng Jin tried his best to persuade him, but he could not. In the end, he could only leave dejectedly. Feng Xiaoxiao leaned against the door and looked at Feng Jin's expression as if she had expected it. I told you it's useless. Do you think he's still Uncle Xiao's puppet? But everything Uncle Xiao did was for him. How can he be so ungrateful? Feng Xiaoxiao rolled her eyes. Why my ass? That guy is also the most angry about this, okay? If it wasn't for the fact that you guys acted smart and kidnapped Xiao Bao, the outcome of this battle with the Lu clan would still be uncertain. That pervert had been looking forward to this battle with Lu Tingxiao to the point of scratching his heart. He was just in the midst of excitement, but it was all ruined by you guys. How could he not be furious? Look at it now. Since you guys are so capable, then you can go and die yourselves. Feng Jin's expression grew uglier as he listened. When Xiao Yi had wanted to lay his hands on Ningxi, he had some concerns. However, he had thought that Satan would, at most, throw a tantrum and not do anything to Xiao Yi. He had not expected that things would escalate to the point where they would fall out completely. The problem now is how to convince Master. Don't be naive. Now that we've touched their territory, it's useless no matter who tries to persuade them. Just wait for your death. Chapter 1748. Look at Tang Yi, he's much smarter than you. He knows it's impossible and has never thought of looking for that guy. At the mention of Tang Yi, a glimmer of hope flashed across Feng Jin's eyes. Perhaps Tang Yi has a way, Feng Xiaoxiao sighed. What way can he have? We couldn't even save the Black Dragon last time, how can we hope to save Uncle Xiao this time? What's more, there's still Tang Lang. Don't mention that traitor. In the basement of a winery owned by the Lu Corporation in the suburbs. A thick soundproof wall isolated the blood-curdling screams in the room. I'll tell you everything. Lu Jingli pursed his lips. Are you serious? So fast? Your little black dragon has held on for 3 days. Lu Tingxiao sat on the sofa, his face expressionless. Xiao Yi's kneecap had been completely gouged out along with the minced flesh. He lay on the floor like a dead dog, his dark eyes staring at the man sitting on the sofa opposite him. He looked dignified, but his methods were more terrifying than the devil's. His eyes were filled with fear. He had thought that the Black Dragon would be able to hold on. He had thought that Lu Tingxiao was just a businessman who reeked of money. He hadn't expected him to be even more ruthless than people like them. Even a deity wouldn't be able to hold on under such a punishment. The people of the Lu clan are really hypocritical, vile people. He couldn't die, he definitely couldn't die. The Lu family hadn't been destroyed. How could he die in a place like this, in the hands of these people? If he could get out of here today, he would never let these people off. And that ungrateful little bastard, he had actually allowed him to die. The man on the sofa remained expressionless even after Qiao Yi had relented. Continue. Lu Jingli scratched his head. But he said he was going to confess? Oh fine, he must be lying if he confessed so quickly. Let's continue then. Dawn was approaching. The man walked out of the room, dressed in his usual black suit. He looked as though he had just come from an elegant banquet, except for the faint hostility and bloodthirsty aura around him. Lu Jingli glanced at his brother beside him in a daze. He didn't know why, but he didn't feel cold. Instead, he felt very warm. He preferred this kind of older brother. This was the real him, and he even had a terrifying side to him. He wasn't always so perfect that he didn't seem like a real person, and he didn't hide all of his dark side in front of him. Tang Lang, who was sitting at the bar counter, heard the footsteps behind him. He turned around with a tipsy expression. Done. Lu Jingli waved the recording chip in his hand. Done. It's enough for him to be sentenced to death. Tang Lang raised his brows when he heard this, and muttered softly, "What's the point of making it so troublesome? Let's just kill him." Lu Tingxiao glanced at him calmly. "It's legal." Lu Jingli walked over and picked up a glass of wine. Taking a sip, he put his hand on Tang Lang's shoulder and explained, "What my brother meant was that we are good citizens who abide by the law. Of course, we have to know the law and do things according to the law." The corner of Tang Lang's mouth twitched when he heard this. "That's right, you guys are really law-abiding. Compared to you guys, prison is simply heaven. You want it?" Lu Tingxiao looked at him and suddenly asked, What? Tang Lang didn't understand what he meant. A certain Koi brand translator continued to translate. "My brother asked you if you want this guy's life. Originally, he was going to give it to the black cat. If you want it, he can give it to you. After all, it's all thanks to you that we were able to catch this guy." As soon as he finished speaking, Tang Lang was slightly stunned. After a moment of silence, he shrugged and said, "Forget it. You're right. Let's just be good citizens who abide by the law. Forget it. Let's just leave it at that. If he were to kill that person with his own hands, he would be chased by Tang Yi for the rest of his life." Chapter 1749. They left the underground winery. The cool morning breeze blew away the stench of blood on the two of them. After tossing and turning for a day and a night, Lu Jingli stretched lazily with sleepy eyes and could not help but complain, "Brother, don't you think that guy is weird? He confessed so many secrets, but when we asked him about Yunlan's background he didn't say a word. Dad is the same, he didn't tell us anything. Actually, I was quite puzzled about this matter. With the old man's family and family values, even if he met a woman he liked and couldn't help it, he would never have the thought of marrying her. But the tombstone with my wife's name on it is indeed his handwriting. I'm so curious. Should we retry the case?" Lu Tingxiao replied, "No need." Qiao Yi had confessed so readily because he wanted to live. But to him, there were other things more important than his life. However, all these entanglements were not important to him. Lu Tingxiao looked at the gradually brightening sky for a long time. After a while, he looked at Lu Jingli and said with a gentle expression, "Go back and rest." Lu Jingli rubbed his eyes and nodded. "Oh, what about you?" Lu Tingxiao replied, "I have something to take care of." Lu Jingli widened his eyes and said anxiously, "What's there to take care of? Even if it's a big deal, you should at least get some sleep first. I haven't seen you sleep since the day we went to save sister-in-law and Xiaobao." "I'm fine." "How can I be fine, you?" At this moment, Lu Tingxiao's cell phone rang. He raised his hand to interrupt Lu Jingli and answered the call. "It's today. Book the next flight." Lu Jingli couldn't believe it. "Where are you going? Do you want to die? If something happens to you, what will happen to sister-in-law and Xiaobao?" "I know what I'm doing." "What do you mean by that? You've forgotten that you're still human." "No, you have to go to sleep today. Immediately. Otherwise, don't even think about going anywhere today." Before he could finish speaking, Lu Jingli suddenly felt a sharp pain at the back of his neck. His vision went black and he gradually lost consciousness. He felt as though he was being carried into a car by a large arm. "Brother, be obedient." Lu Jingli closed his eyes unwillingly and fell into a deep sleep. He actually knocked him out without saying a word. Knock him out. Knock him out. Am I still your dearest little brother? What he was most worried about had happened. He knew that little Cece was not here. No one could persuade him. Meanwhile, all the major media outlets were crazily reporting the most anticipated super fantasy drama of the year, Ninth Heaven. This drama had an investment of 500 million yuan, and it had a super luxurious lineup of 2 movie queens. On the first day of its broadcast, the ratings soared to the first place, and the number of online views easily exceeded 100 million. The new couple, Jiang Mai and Meng Shi, quickly became a hot topic. Ning Shi didn't have many scenes in the first few episodes, so she didn't attract much attention. However, Lin Zhizhi heaved a sigh of relief and smiled bitterly. She wasn't worried that Ning Shi wouldn't become popular, but that Ning Shi would become too popular. She logged into Lu Ningxi's Weibo account and imitated Lu Ningxi's tone to post a promotion on Weibo. Jiang Mai immediately reposted it. So far, everything was going well with the fans, and no one found anything unusual. Chapter 1750. When Lu Jingli woke up, it was dark outside. The first thing he wanted to do was to call his brother. However, as soon as he went out, his phone rang. The caller ID was Mo Ling Tian. Why did this guy call him at this time? Lu Jingli picked up the phone suspiciously. "Hello, brother Tian. What's up?" Mo Ling Tian sounded serious. "Jingli, what's going on with your brother? Why did he suddenly turn against the Guan family?" Turn against him? Yes, he turned against him. He turned against him a long time ago. But how do you know? Lu Jingli asked suspiciously. "How do I know? Now everyone in the circle knows it. The Guan family has recently been exposed to bribery and unfair competition in a big deal with the government. Guan Rue has been taken away for investigation, and the Guan family's overseas listed company is on the verge of bankruptcy. Now the Guan family is asking for help everywhere, but your brother directly said that anyone who helps the Guan family is against him." Mo Ling Tian explained quickly. Lu Jingli was dumbfounded. "Shit. I just woke up from a nap. He made the Guan family go bankrupt? Now I can't get through to your brother, so I can only come to you. What's going on?" Mo Ling Tian asked in a low voice. Lu Jingli curled his lips. "Tut, did Guan Xiao ask you for help? Brother Tian, don't blame me for not reminding you. You'd better not get involved in this, or you and my brother won't even be friends. I have to know the reason," Lu Jingli said sarcastically. "Before I tell you the reason, I want to know what Guan Xiao said to you. She said your brother did it for Ningxi. This reason is reasonable, but it doesn't make sense. If it weren't for something special, he wouldn't have done this." Hearing that Mo Ling Tian was still rational, Lu Jingli's attitude softened a little. "Fortunately, you found me. If you found my brother, he wouldn't have bothered to explain himself. Then, you would have been tricked by her beauty. You could have cried a little and you would have been fooled. I'll send you 2 wonderful recordings later, and you can listen to them yourself." After Lu Jingli finished speaking, he sighed and said, "Brother Tian, I admire you for liking someone so wholeheartedly for so many years, and I respect you for being so persistent. However, I'm afraid some people aren't like what they seem on the surface. You should be more careful." After Mo Ling Tian hung up the phone, he fell into a long silence. Soon, there was a notification in his mailbox for the latest email. Mo Ling Tian lit a cigarette. After hesitating for a moment, he lit it up. As the sound came from inside, his expression became more and more unsightly. After an unknown amount of time, Mo Ling Tian finally returned to the private room. In the private room, Guan Xiao saw him and immediately asked anxiously, "Lingnan, what did Ting Xiao say?" Mo Ling Tian looked at him with a complicated expression and said, "I couldn't get through to Ting Xiao, so I called Lu Jingli. He sent me 2 recordings." When Guan Xiao heard the word recording, her face turned pale. Mo Ling Tian stared at the woman in front of him and asked, Ziyao, are you hiding something from me? Guan Ziyao fell into the chair behind her. Knowing she couldn't hide it anymore, she smiled bitterly and said, yes. My parents and my brother did some stupid things, but they all did it for me, to make me happy. I can pay for my stubbornness, but they are all innocent. Chapter 1751. Innocent? Ziyao, do you really think they're innocent? Mo Ling Tian directly clicked on the second recording. All the explicit words of the Guan family were poured into the enclosed room. After the recording ended, the private room fell into dead silence. Lincoln, before Guan Ziyao could defend herself, Mo Ling Tian continued, back at my father's birthday banquet, when Ningxi was pushed into the water and almost drowned, you were the ones who arranged it, weren't you? I actually still believe you, that was just an accident. Guan Ziyao stared at the man in front of her in despair. No matter what they did, they are still my father and my brother. What do you want me to do? Do you want me to watch the Guan family be destroyed without doing anything? Mo Lingtian's back stiffened and his eyes were bloodshot. His gaze was filled with disappointment and coldness that she had never seen before. Ziyao, you knew everything that your family did, didn't you? But you never stopped them. Faced with Mo Lingtian's questioning, Guan Ziyao suddenly laughed coldly and looked up at him as she said word by word, why should I stop them? That woman isn't worthy of Tingxiao. If Tingxiao hadn't been deceived and bewitched by that woman, our families would have been connected by marriage. With the Guan family's power and our families working together, that illegitimate child wouldn't be a threat and none of this would have happened. Xiaobao wouldn't have been kidnapped. But now, Tingxiao wants to destroy the Guan family even if both sides suffer. It's all that woman's fault. Mo Ling Tian looked at the woman in front of him and suddenly felt a deep sense of helplessness. He hated Guan Ziyao's stubbornness, but he couldn't say a word about it. Because, wasn't he the same way towards her? Even though he knew that it was impossible, even though he knew that she had someone she liked, he still couldn't let go in the past, no matter what happened. As long as he could see her and hear her speak, he would be extremely satisfied and willing to do anything for her. Especially after she returned to the country, he felt as if he had been reborn. No matter what he did, he was filled with motivation and tried his best to make her happy. Even if he didn't get a response, he would gladly endure it. But now, every time they met, he could only feel a suffocating pressure. The girl in his memory that made his heart beat faster was getting further and further away from him, becoming more and more blurry. He almost couldn't remember what the girl he liked looked like. Was she really the same person in front of him? Mo Lingtian's heart ached uncontrollably. At that moment, his phone vibrated slightly. A foreign phone number had sent him a photo. On a quiet path, a girl wearing a light green floral dress squatted by the side of the road, teasing a round orange kitten. The expression on her face was so gentle that it seemed to be able to dispel all the haze in the world. Even the suffocating feeling that was bothering him at this moment suddenly disappeared. Heaven's heart, heaven's heart. When Mo Ling Tian realized that this name had suddenly appeared repeatedly in his mind, his expression suddenly changed, and he hurriedly put away his phone. The person he liked was Ziyao, the person he loved was Ziyao. He swore that in this life he would only love this woman, but right now, what was he doing? This feeling of betrayal made him feel even more painful. We were indeed in the wrong this time. No matter what, my brother shouldn't have touched Xiaobao. But luckily he didn't want to hurt Xiaobao. Xiaobao was fine at that time and that woman had Tingxiao protecting her, so we didn't cause any harm to her, right? Now that she's injured, it has nothing to do with the Guan family. Tingxiao has gone too far by venting his anger on us like this. Mo Ling Tian took a deep breath and interrupted her. Ziyao, I can help you find someone to reduce your father's sentence, but, regarding the company, I'm sorry, I can't interfere. Chapter 1752. Hearing Mo Ling Tian say that he couldn't interfere, Guan Ziyao's face was filled with disbelief. This man was willing to do anything for her in the past, let alone now when she needed his help the most. Ling Tian, you're the only person I can ask for help from now on. You're the only person I can talk to in front of Tingxiao. If I wasn't at my wit's end, I definitely wouldn't have bothered you. Mo Lingtian's expression was numb. Xiao, the three of us grew up together. You're my friend and Ting Xiao is my brother. The Guan family is in the wrong and this is the best I can do for you. It's also the last thing I can do for you. Furthermore, Ningxi wasn't just Ting Xiao's sweetheart, she was also Tianxin's cousin. Guan Xiao clenched her fists. What do you mean? Mo Lingtian closed his eyes and said, Xiao, I understand your stubbornness towards Ting Xiao because I feel the same way towards you. Ling, I knew you would understand. Before Guan Xiao could continue speaking, Mo Lingtian had already interrupted her. However, Xiao, I like you openly and openly. I've never done anything to hurt you or the people around you in private, and I've never forced you to do anything. But you don't just like Ting Xiao anymore. If you really like someone, you don't have to get them, you have to do anything. Do you understand? Mo Lingtian didn't know if these words were meant for Guan Xiao or for himself. But after saying these words, he felt as though he had been released. He recalled what Lu Jingli had said to him. Some people weren't like what they seemed on the surface. He had always thought that the person he liked was the most special. She was different from all the other girls. She was so unique and dazzling. He believed that she had really let go. He believed that she was the person he had imagined in his heart. He had always been living in his memories, immersed in his fantasies. Actually, he should have realized it a long time ago. She kept saying that she would let go, but at the same time, she kept finding opportunities to get close to Ting Xiao through him. From the start, his value to her was probably only his identity as Lu Tingxiao's brother. He wasn't even considered her friend. It was just that he didn't want to speculate about the girl he liked with the greatest malice, and he didn't want to believe that the person he had liked for so long was the kind of person he hated the most. After saying that, Mo Lingtian stood up, pushed the door open, and left. Guan Xiao sat there in a daze, looking in the direction of the man's departure. It seemed that she had only just realized what she had lost. In the next second, she quickly stood up and chased after Mo Lingtian. She grabbed his arm and said in a trembling voice, Ling, I'm sorry. I know I disappointed you. I know I lied to you. I've never given up on him, but I really had no choice. I couldn't control myself. I love him. I really can't watch the Guan family being destroyed in my hands. I beg you just this once, okay? This time, I've really given up. I won't disturb him anymore. Mo Lingtian looked at the girl's hand and didn't say anything. After a while, he slowly pulled the girl's fingers from his arm and said, Xiao, I've also given up. Guan Xiao's face turned pale. For you, I've already done too many wrong things and hurt too many people. So sorry. Chapter 1753. A week later, Lu Jingli's mouth was full of blisters. He had been persuading his brother for the past few days. His mouth was so worn out that he wouldn't listen no matter what he said. He missed the days when Cici was around. She only needed to say one word and he would do whatever she was told. She was so obedient. He wanted to cry again at the thought of this. Lu Jingli was sighing sadly when his cell phone rang. He casually glanced at it and saw that it was a call from the Mo family. Hello, Auntie Mo? The moment he picked up the phone, Kang Shuhui's anxious voice came from the other end. Jingli, have you seen Ling Tian in the past few days? Brother Tian? What's wrong? I haven't seen Ling Tian for a whole week. His phone is on but no one is picking up. I've been asking around but no one knows where he went. I'm so worried. What? Disappeared? Lu Jingli's expression changed. A week ago, wasn't that when he told Brother Tian the truth? Don't tell me something happened to him. Lu Jingli muttered unconsciously. Kang Shuhui almost went crazy when she heard this. Jingli, what did you say? What happened? Do you know something? You must tell Auntie. Ling Tian has been very obedient ever since the incident with Tian Exen. He comes home on time every day. I don't know why he suddenly disappeared for so long. Lu Jingli was also worried that something might have happened, so he could only tell her the truth. A week ago, Brother Tian came to ask me what happened between my brother and the Guan family. And then? I knew it must have something to do with that woman. He would only act like this when it's related to her. The Guan family even asked Ling Tian's father for help, but we didn't know what was going on, so we didn't intervene. So I told him the truth. The Guan family has been trying to harm my brother's girlfriend and Xiao Bao several times. I think Brother Tian didn't interfere too much this time. He must have thought it through, but he can't accept it for the time being, Lu Jingli said and hurriedly comforted her. But Auntie, don't worry. How can a man get into trouble so easily? I guess he's just upset, so he found a place to stay alone. I'm often like this when I'm upset. Really? Really, don't worry, I will help you look for it. Alright, but... Thank you, Jingli. After Kang Shuhui hung up the phone, she immediately told Mo Jianzhang about the situation. Mo Jianzhang muttered, then let him calm down for a few days. Why are you in such a hurry? How can I not be anxious? It's not like you don't know how devoted our son is to that woman. What if the blow this time was too great and he really couldn't take it anymore? It had already been 7 days. I already lost my grandson. Will you only be happy when your son is gone too? Seeing that his wife was getting more and more out of hand, Mo Jianzhang could only hurriedly say, haven't I already sent people to look for him? Can you wait patiently for a while? I don't even know where that brat ran off to. Even I can't find him. At this moment, Kang Shuhui seemed to have thought of something and suddenly said, do you think? Ling Tian went to look for Tian Xen? Tian Xen? Mo Jianzhang's face turned serious. Didn't Tian Xen leave the country? Chapter 1754. The more Kang Shuhui thought about it, the more she felt that it was possible. Actually, I've been watching from the side. Our Ling Tian and Tianxin are definitely not as boring as he thinks they are. It's just that he hasn't realized it yet. Didn't you notice that ever since Tianxin left, he's been distracted? With the stimulation from the Guan family's incident, maybe he really went to look for Tianxin? Mo Jianzhang was shaken by her words. But what if he isn't? It's not appropriate for you to look for a girl like this. Kang Shuhui hesitated for a while. I don't want to disturb Tianxin and I don't have the face to look for her. Forget it. Let's wait and see if there's any news tomorrow. The night passed. Mo Ling Tian still couldn't find Tianxin. Kang Shuhui finally broke down. She couldn't care about anything else anymore. She dialed Ning Tianxin's overseas number with trembling fingers. Hearing the clear and gentle voice, Kang Shuhui couldn't hold it in anymore. She cried out, I'm Ling Tian's mother, Madame Mo? The voice on the other side of the phone sounded surprised. Did I disturb your rest? Kang Shuhui said apologetically. No, it's afternoon here. But you're so early. Is there anything? Hearing the gentle and polite attitude of the girl on the other side of the phone, Kang Shuhui felt even more guilty. She blushed. Even if Tianxin directly hung up on her, she could completely understand. However, this girl's kindness and upbringing were ingrained in her bones. Even after going through so much, she was still the same as before. Tianxin, I'm sorry to disturb you. I'll hang up right away. Did Ling Tan go to look for you these few days? Kang Shuhui asked nervously. Probably because she heard Mo Ling Tian's name, the person on the other side of the phone went silent for a second. Then she said, No. Her last trace of hope was gone. Kang Shuhui's face froze. Her heart felt like it had fallen into an ice cellar. Hearing the faint sobs coming from the other end, the girl asked, Madam, are you all right? I'm fine. Ling Tian suddenly disappeared. I'm worried that something happened to him. His phone is working, but no one is picking up. If it's possible, can you give him a call or send him a message? Ask him where he is. Maybe if you call him, he'll respond. Kang Shuhui begged as she sobbed. I know this is a little too much, and I also know that I might be trying to find a doctor in a desperate situation. If it's inconvenient, it's okay, I'll try, but I don't think I'll be of much help, really? That was great. Thank you, Tianxin. No matter what, thank you. China, Luoyang City. Ning Tianxin hung up the phone. Then she sat on a bench on the campus quietly, spacing out. Just now, because she couldn't stand Kang Shuhui's crying and begging, she agreed. After she calmed down, she felt that it was ridiculous for her to interfere in this matter. After thinking for a while, she called Ningxi. Hello, Xiaoxi. Hello, I'm Ningxi's agent, Lin Jiji. Are you Ningxi's cousin? The voice on the other end of the phone was not Ningxi's. Yes. Sorry, she's working. It's not convenient for her to answer the phone now. Can I ask her to text you back later? Chapter 1755. It's okay. It's nothing urgent. Don't bother her. Ning Tianxin hung up the phone when she saw Ningxi was busy. After a moment of silence, the girl shook her head, feeling funny. Anyway, it didn't matter anymore. Why should she care about what he thought? Why should she care about whether Huang was ridiculous or not? As long as she had a clear conscience, it was fine. Ning Tianxin felt relieved. She opened WeChat and quickly sent a message. Then, she picked up the book on the side and continued to walk towards the classroom. On an island in S City. The island was located alone in the middle of the sea. There was a unique villa on the island. It was isolated from the world and had beautiful scenery. However, at this moment, the wine cellar was in a mess. The thick curtains completely blocked the light. The wine cellar was almost emptied. There were empty wine bottles all over the floor, and the pungent smell of alcohol filled the air. The man was lying in the middle of a pile of wine bottles and broken pieces. He had lost a lot of weight. His stubbled cheeks were sunken in. There was no light in his gray eyes. He looked like a dying beast. The phone next to him was on silent mode. Occasionally, it would light up the dark space. After a long time, the man stood up mechanically and picked up a bottle of wine from the mostly empty wine rack. He tripped on something and fell to the ground. The man didn't care and just lay there. At this moment, the phone next to him lit up again. The man's eyes seemed to see nothing. He didn't even look at it. However, he seemed to dislike the light next to his eyes. It was really an eyesore. Finally, he had some energy. The moment his finger pressed the power off button, the man's gray and numb eyes suddenly burst into flames. He sat up and looked at the name on the screen in disbelief. Tianxin? Because only the sender could be seen on the main screen, not the content, Mo Ling Tian almost immediately unlocked the phone with trembling fingers. However, at this moment, the phone turned off automatically because it ran out of battery. Fuck! In the wine cellar that had been silent for 7 days and 7 nights, the man cursed furiously. He searched the entire villa but couldn't find the charger. The man immediately rushed out of the door and drove the yacht away from the island. The shore closest to the island was a fishing village. He quickly ran to a grocery store not far away. Boss, do you have a charger? The boss was startled when he saw the man in ragged clothes and messy hair. Before the boss could say anything, Mo Ling Tian slammed 100 yuan on the table. There was a strangler. We have whatever you want. Can you charge it? Sure, look at your feet. Yes, there's a socket there. Mo Ling Tian took the charger, sat on the ground, and plugged the charger into the socket. 1 second, 5 seconds, 10 seconds. Why are you so slow? Hee, this is a knockoff. How can it be that fast? Please wait a little longer. The little old man at the stall looked at him curiously. Young man, did you get tricked by a multi-level marketing scammer? Do you want me to call the police for you? No need. Mo Ling Tian stared at the red progress bar on his phone without blinking. After waiting for a full 3 minutes, the phone was finally turned on. Just as Mo Ling Tian was about to open WeChat, he suddenly paused. He clenched and released his fingers several times before he finally opened WeChat and saw the message. Chapter 1756. Tianxin, where are you? Your mother is very worried about you. If you see her, please call her back. Mo Ling Tian looked at the message. The blood flowing in his body, the turbulent emotions that were out of control, all calmed down in an instant. It wasn't an illusion. It wasn't an illusion. The little old man at the stall was humming a song as he sorted out his goods. From the corner of his eye, he saw the young man squatting in front of his door charging. He didn't know why, but his back was tense, his fingers clenched tightly as he stared at his phone. After a while, water dripped onto his phone screen. Hey, young man, what's wrong with you? Do you really not need help? The little old man ran over and asked worriedly. The man didn't look up. Give me a pack of cigarettes. What kind do you want? I don't have any good ones here, and I'm worried that you won't be used to it. Whatever, it's fine. The little old man looked at him as he hesitantly took a pack of cigarettes from the shelf and gave it to him. He also gave him a lighter. Mo Ling Tian lit the cigarette and took a puff. He was choked by the smell and coughed repeatedly. The little old man laughed. This is the smell of our cigarettes. It's strong. The people here were simple and honest. The little old man was probably worried that something might have happened to him and kept talking to him. Those words kept ringing in his ears. On the surface of the sea not far away, the sky gradually brightened and the sea breeze, mixed with a salty and humid smell, hit his face. Mo Ling Tian looked at the message on his phone quietly, over and over again. There seemed to be something in his body that was suddenly filled with a huge force, bursting out from the dark soil. Time passed quietly. The man stared at the message motionlessly. His finger landed on the reply box, but in the end he did nothing. When the phone had a little more battery, Mo Ling Tian opened his address book and called home. It's really you? You stinking brat. Where did you go? Do you know that you almost scared me to death? What's wrong with your voice? Are you sick? Do you feel uncomfortable? Where are you now? Where have you been these days? Kong Shuhui threw a series of questions. Mom, sorry. I'll go back immediately. I won't let you worry anymore. Kong Shuhui's heart ached as she listened to her son's hoarse and haggard voice. Mom, please call Tianxin back and tell him that I'm fine, the man said. On the other end of the phone, Kong Shuhui was stunned when she heard this. Heavens will contacted you? Why don't you tell her yourself? Ling Tian, tell me honestly, do you feel for Heaven's will? There was no hesitation in the man's tone. He then said, please help me reply. My phone is almost out of battery. Kong Shuhui didn't suspect anything. Plus, she wanted to see her son as soon as possible, so she quickly said, oh, okay? Then come back quickly. After finishing the cigarette, the man slowly stood up and said, thanks, the cigarette is good. The little old man chuckled as he looked at him. Right? Those who have smoked here all say it's good. Young lad, have you met with some kind of trouble? The man quietly looked at the sea not far away. I just suddenly understood something. He finally understood and was willing to admit that after so many years in companionship, he had fallen in love with another girl. However, when he realized it, it was already impossible for them to be together. There's only one thing I can do for you. I won't disturb you. Chapter 1757. The Ning Family. Madam Miss Su is back. Hearing the maid's report, Zhuang Lingyu, who was sitting on the sofa, immediately got up to greet her with joy. Ning Shuilua handed the bags in her hands to the maid and called out sweetly, Mom. Hey, come in. Look at how sweaty you are. You've been running around the company all day and your own company is preparing to go public. You're so busy. Why do you still come to my place? Mom, I miss you. I asked someone to get these donkeys gelatin and bird's nest. They're of good quality. You can eat some when you're free. Keep these for your mother-in-law. I've also given some to my mother-in-law. Zhuang Lingyu took her hand with concern. How are you doing in the Su family? How does Zheng Minjun treat you? Ning Xuelua forced a smile. Although it's not as good as before, it's much better. Zhuang Lingyu knew that her daughter must have suffered a lot in the Su family from her expression. Her face darkened. Ning Shula hurriedly said, Mom, don't worry about me. I'll work hard to make you proud and let everyone know that you've raised a good daughter. Ning Xuelua's words completely touched her heart. Zhuang Lingyu immediately said, Good girl, Shuo, you're already very good. It's those snobs who don't know you well. Ning Xuelua was about to speak when she saw Ning Ziyuan coming back with a cane. She hurriedly got up and greeted him, Grandpa. Ning Ziyuan nodded slightly and didn't say much. He was about to go back to the room when he thought of something and stopped. Tomorrow night, when Wenba comes back, we'll have a family gathering. Call Xiaoxi too. Zhuang Lingyu's face suddenly darkened. Dad, you know that girl's temper. Have you forgotten what she said before? She doesn't want to have anything to do with our Ning family. Why should we stick our faces to her cold buttocks? At this time, Ning Yaohua, who was behind her, walked over and coughed lightly. Lingyu, the child only said those words out of anger. There are some things that we did wrong and she feels wronged. It's good for the family to be harmonious. Why do you have to lower yourself to a child's level? I think we'd better call Xiaoxi along tomorrow night. Only then did Ning Ziyuan nod in satisfaction. Then, as if he didn't believe him, he stood there and said, then make the call now. Ning Yaohua shook his head helplessly. Dad, you still don't believe me? I'll fight now, okay? Seeing this, Zhuang Lingyu became anxious and kept signaling Ning Yaohua with her eyes. Ning Yaohua lowered his voice and said, Dad is not in good health. Don't make him angry because of this. It's just a meal. Besides, even if we don't invite her, Qiu Tong will definitely ask Xiaoxi to join us. Why does she always play the good guy and drive a wedge between our family? When Ning Xuelua heard the word family from Ning Yaohua's mouth, a trace of darkness flashed in her eyes. In front of the old master, Zhuang Lingyu couldn't say much, and Ning Yaohua's attitude was firm, so she could only let him make the call. Hey, Xiaoxi, tomorrow night. After dialing Ning Shi's number, Ning Yaohua was about to play the role of a loving father, but he was interrupted by the mechanical voice. Hello, who is this? I'm Ning Shi's agent. She's working and can't answer the phone now. Ning Yaohua paused and then said in a proud tone, I'm her father. You can tell her. She'll answer the phone. Chapter 1758. Are you her adoptive father, Mr. Tang Shan? What adoptive father? I'm her biological father. Sir, as far as I know, Ning Shi has long broken off contact with her biological parents. Ning Yaohua walked a little further away and lowered his voice. You're Ning Shi's agent. Where did you hear this nonsense? Put Cici on the phone right now. Sorry, sir. Everyone who is familiar with Ning Shi knows that she doesn't answer private calls at work. Hearing the sound of the phone being hung up, Ning Yaohua was so angry that his face darkened. Seeing Ning Yaohua's angry face, Ning Xuelua's eyes lit up. Dad, what's wrong? Nothing. Ning Yaohua certainly wouldn't tell her that he was humiliated by a little agent on the phone. He coughed and said, Cici is busy and can't answer the phone. Ning Xuelua looked understanding. My sister is so popular now. She must be very busy. I'm afraid it won't be easy to ask her to come out, Zhuang Lingyu sneered. She just starred in a few movies. She's so arrogant. Xue Luo, when you were popular, she was nowhere to be found. Now she's trying every means to drive you out of the entertainment circle and rob you of all your resources. How dare she put on airs in front of us? Ning Ziyuan glanced at them unhappily. That's enough. If Cici is busy, let's forget about it. What's the fuss? If you had disclosed Xue Luo's affair from the beginning instead of deceiving her, Xue Luo wouldn't have become like this. If you had handled the relationship with the Tang family well, things wouldn't have developed to this point and brought shame to the entire Ning family. All the consequences are caused by you. Don't blame Cici for everything. Ning Yaohua hurriedly said, Dad, calm down. Let's not mention the past. As for the family party tomorrow night, Cici has some misunderstanding and prejudice against us. I guess she won't come even if I invite her, but I think she will give face to Qiu Tong and Wenba. Zhuang Lingyu had been very uncomfortable with the fact that the old man had been on Ning Shi's side. Seeing that Ning Yaohua had been speaking up for Ning Shi today, she was even more furious. She was very clear in her heart that Ning Yaohua wasn't worried that the old man's body wasn't feeling well. He clearly saw that the lass had climbed up the Zhuang family's high branch, so he was moved. The Zhuang family was the most selfish. For the sake of their family's reputation, they would even abandon their own flesh and blood. How could they really do anything to that little girl? If the Zhuang clan had really acknowledged that lass, she would have spread the news all over the world. She wouldn't have been so quiet. The next night, at the banquet in the private room, Ning Yaohua, Ning Yaobang, and Ning Qiutong were all present. Next to Ning Qiutong was Guo Wenba, who had just returned from abroad. The two juniors, Ning Xuelua and Su Yen, were also present. When the banquet was about to start, Ning Xuelua looked concerned and asked casually, "Aren't you going to wait for Xiaoxi?" Su Yen was stunned when he heard Ning Xuelua's words. He subconsciously glanced in the direction of the door. Ever since the Golden Palm Awards, he had not seen her even once except on television and in various reports. Ning Qiutong looked up and said, "Xiaoxi doesn't have time. She won't come today." Chapter 1759. Ning Xuelua was surprised. "My father also called her, but her agent answered the call and said that she was busy. I thought she would come if you called her." Zhuang Lingyu smiled. "That girl is busy trying to get rich. She won't remember us." Ning Qiutong didn't care at all. She glanced at her coldly and said, "If she is doing well as her aunt, I will naturally be happy for her. Now, wherever I go, who doesn't praise my niece for being beautiful and capable? All day long, I don't know how many socialites and young ladies from aristocratic families come to me, asking me to get Shi-Yer's autograph, wanting to visit her at work." Hearing this, Ning Xuelua's face almost tensed up. Her nails dug into her palms. Zhuang Lingyu was so angry that her veins were about to pop. This Ning Qiutong always went against her and poked at her weak spot every time. She knew that Xuelua had quit the entertainment industry, but she still said these words to hurt her. "All right, let's eat." It wasn't until the old man coughed softly and spoke that the smoke of gunpowder barely dissipated. "Wenba, how long are you going to stay?" Grandpa Ning asked. Guo Wenba put down his chopsticks and said gently, "I won't stay too long. I'm here to meet a client and help Qiutong deal with some matters." "Deal with some matters?" Hearing this, Ning Yaohuan narrowed his eyes. "Sure enough," Ning Qiutong said, "isn't old Chun going to retire from the finance department? Someone has to take the vacant CFO position, so I asked Wenba to hire a senior financial manager from abroad." Before Ning Yaohua could say anything, Zhuang Lingyu couldn't bear it anymore. "What do you mean by a high salary? I think he's one of your people from the very beginning. Yaohua has already reserved the position for Shuo. Xuelua will be able to take the position after a while. Don't worry too much." Ning Qiutong said slowly, "Worry too much? Sister-in-law, don't forget that although I don't have a position in the company, I'm the biggest shareholder of the Ning's group." Ning Xueluo did not get any shares. Even if Ning Yaohua transferred all his shares to her, she would only get 15% of the shares. Ning Qiutong had 10% of the company's shares, plus the 10% transferred to her by Ning Shi, so she had 20% of the company's shares in total. She was indeed the biggest shareholder of the company. Zhuang Lingyu's face was full of anger. "You have no right to make such a decision on your own. How dare you place your own people in such an important position?" Ning Qiutong raised an eyebrow. "Oh, does that mean you already have one?" Zhuang Lingyu snorts, "Xueluo is not an outsider." In other words, Ning Qiutong was just an outsider. Hearing this, Ning Qiutong burst out laughing. "Sister-in-law, are you joking? If she's not an outsider, then who is?" "Ning Qiutong, don't go too far." Ning Yaohua's face darkened. "Qiutong, you've gone too far. You have the most shares, but I'm the chairman now. You have no right to interfere with the company's personnel transfers." Ning Qiutong's face suddenly became fierce. "Huh, chairman, you're so arrogant. A chairman who doesn't have any shares? Let me tell you, if it weren't for the fact that Xiaoxi doesn't want to work in the company, I would have the right to put her in this position. You can try if you don't believe me." Chapter 1760. Since Xiaoxi had given her the shares, she had to live up to her trust and trust. How could she let these people mess around in the company? Ning Yaohua was so angry that he almost vomited blood. Ning Yaobang, on the other hand, was quietly drinking and watching the show. He was having a great time. Suyin didn't get a word in. He looked a little embarrassed. But he had come today because he had other plans, so he was naturally absent-minded. In the past, Su Yen would definitely stand up for her, but the man next to him didn't say anything. Ning Xuelua bit her lip and looked aggrieved, but he didn't even notice her grievance. She didn't know when it started, but his attention had gradually shifted away from her. She could guess what was on Su Yan's mind. He had been seduced by that bitch, dong, dong dong. The sound of a cane hitting the ground was heard. Ning Ziyuan was furious. Enough, shut up. I'm not dead yet, and you're going to tear this family apart? The room fell silent. Ning Ziyuan panted. After a while, he took a deep breath and said, Xuelua doesn't have enough experience. It's not appropriate for her to take that position in such a short time, and it's hard to convince the public. Chiotong, no matter how good your manager is, he doesn't know the situation of our company. So, Dad, what do you mean? Ning Yaobang asked as if he wanted to see the world in chaos. The old master glared at Ning Yaobang and then continued. Chiotong, you can hire someone to join the company, but just like Xuelua, he has to start from the bottom and familiarize himself with the company. I'll talk to old Chen and ask him to delay his retirement. As for who will take the position, you can compete fairly. Everyone will see how well you perform and then vote at the shareholders' meeting. Although both sides were not convinced by the old master's words, they knew that they couldn't do anything to each other. Ning Yaohua and Ning Chiotong didn't say anything, tacitly agreeing to the old master's idea. The meal was finally over. On the way back, Zhuang Lingyu was still angry. What fair competition? Dad is obviously siding with Ning Chiotong. Not only does Ning Chiotong hold so many shares, but she also has Guo Wenba's support. How can our Xuelua compete with her? It's all that bitch's fault. She wanted to go against us and gave all her shares to Ning Chiotong. Otherwise, why would we be in such a passive situation? Ning Xuelua quickly comforted her. Mom, don't be angry. Brother Yen will help me too. Don't you think so? At that moment, Su Yen, who had been silent all night, finally nodded and said, Of course. Only then did Zhuang Lingyu's complexion improve a little. She took their hands and crossed them together. You two have to be well. The most important thing is to have a child as soon as possible. That way, the old man's mind will naturally turn to you. Mom, why are you saying that? Ning Xuelua was embarrassed. Zhuang Lingyu said angrily, What I'm talking about is very important. Both of you, listen carefully. Su Yen, won't your mother urge you? Su Yen coughed lightly and said, My mother is fine. She respects our opinions. Actually, when he hadn't married Xue Luo, his mother had already started to urge them to have grandchildren. But after he married Xue Luo, his mother seemed to have suddenly became indifferent. She didn't urge them anymore. Chapter 1761. Late at night, the study of the Platinum Palace was brightly lit. Lu Jingli looked at the documents in his hands and wished he could open his eyes with a toothpick. But a certain inhuman being was still working on those complicated documents as if nothing had happened. He had been watching over him these days. Since he couldn't persuade him, he could only keep an eye on him to prevent anything from happening to him. Brother, I know you want to wait for sister-in-law to wake up and give her peace and prosperity. Then you'll say, Look, this is the world I've conquered for you. The country is yours. That's so romantic. But you have to survive until the day sister-in-law wakes up, right? Lu Tingxiao looked up at Lu Jingli, who was lying on the sofa. Lu Jingli immediately subconsciously covered the back of his neck. What? You want to hit me again? I know. I'll shut up. I have to keep my life to keep an eye on you for Cici. Just then, Lu Tingxiao's phone rang. The man picked up the phone as usual. President Lu, the media and fans have been stable recently, but a few days ago, Ning Shi's cousin called. I don't know why she was looking for Ning Shi. Today, Ning Yaohua and Ning Shi's aunt, Ning Chiotong, also called. It seems that Ning Shi's uncle has returned to the country and is having a family dinner. I've tried to cancel it and they didn't suspect anything. Lin Jiji called Lu Tingxiao as usual to report everything about Ning Shi and then asked, Should we keep it a secret from all these people? Lu Tingxiao said, The fewer people who know, the better. Lin Jiji nodded. Okay, I got it. The incident with Xiao Tao was a warning. The fewer people who knew about Ning Shi's situation, the better. As soon as Lu Tingxiao hung up the phone, a man rushed in. Tang Lang panted and bent over. Xiao Yi was taken away. Damn it, he's already been sent to prison. And he was taken out. Is that guy even a human? What? He broke out of prison. That's awesome. Is it the same person who took Black Dragon away? Lu Jingli immediately perked up. Tang Lang let out a sigh of relief. I feel that it should be the same person's modus operandi. Xiao Yi's people seem to think that we were the ones who released the Black Dragon. In fact, we were the ones who kidnapped it. Now, this fellow has actually appeared again. Lu Jingli was puzzled. Where did that person come from? Did Xiao Yi and the others not know? From the looks of it, aren't they in cahoots? Tang Lang scratched his head in annoyance. Actually, I'm not too sure about this. But I've been in the organization for so many years, and I've never heard of such a person. If there is, even if I don't know about it, how could that battle maniac Tang Yi not know about it? Lu Jingli nodded repeatedly with an expression that said, "You're right. It's a pity that I didn't get to fight with that person twice. Otherwise, I would have been able to recognize him." After Tang Lang finished speaking, he looked at the man in front of the table with a cold expression. "Boss, what should we do now?" The man leaned against the wide chair, his dark eyes like a bottomless black hole. Huh? What do you mean? Tang Lang looked confused. Lu Jingli giggled as he walked over and placed his hand on Tang Lang's shoulder. With a tone as if he was presenting a treasure, he lowered his voice and said, "My brother asked me to take advantage of the time when that guy was unconscious to put some little things in his body." Tang Lang raised his eyebrows in surprise. "You put a tracking device on Xiao Yi?" Chapter 1762. Can we find out where they are now? Tang Lang asked hurriedly. Lu Jingli explained proudly, "Don't worry, they're not ordinary people. They might not have thought of this. If the tracker is discovered, wouldn't all our efforts be in vain? That's why we haven't activated it yet. We'll wait for them to lower their guard before locating them. Also, this thing has recording and video functions. The moment it's activated, it can transmit all the information to us. If it's destroyed by an external force, it will automatically activate and transmit the information." The corner of Tang Lang's mouth twitched. These two were indeed that guy's brothers. They were both equally perverted. Under those circumstances, Xiao Yi was no longer a threat, but they still made preparations. Could it be that they had predicted that the person from before would appear again? Actually, Xiao Yi is no longer a threat. Even if he escaped, it would be useless. This time, Satan has completely severed ties with him and has already taken in all of his men. As Tang Lang spoke, he glanced thoughtfully at the man in front of the table who had an unfathomable expression. Now that Xiao Yi had been dealt with, his next target, could it be that guy? At that time, wouldn't it be another terrifying battle? Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, 3 months had passed. The entire capital city was calm and peaceful. The battle that Tang Lang had expected did not happen. The miracle that everyone had been hoping for did not happen either. That reckless girl was still lying quietly in the heavily guarded, cold, and quiet nursing home. There were no signs of her waking up. To make matters worse, Ning Shi's mother had been released, and she had won the Golden Deer Award and the Golden Luan Award for Best Actress. In addition to the Golden Palm Award, she had won the 3 most prestigious Best Actress trophies in the country, as well as various other awards of all sizes. Seeing that she had almost won all the awards in the country, Jiang Xingzhou revealed that Mother had already been selected for the Lorraine International Film Festival. At the same time, since the broadcast of 9 Firmaments, Ning Shi's popularity was getting higher and higher with the promotion of the plot. The absolute bed scene between Ning Shi and Kumingyu set the ratings record of the capital satellite TV for the past 10 years in one fell swoop. The online broadcast record was also broken again and again. The online game of the same name and all kinds of derivative copyrights were everywhere. In the streets and alleys, the entire internet, in these 3 months, everyone, regardless of gender or age, was talking about this drama. Both the main and supporting roles in this drama were extremely popular, and Ning Shi's super popularity and acting skills completely crushed Best Actress Meng Shi. She was nominated for Best Actress at this year's Golden Orchid Awards. There was no doubt that Ning Shi's movies and TV shows were both successful this year. All the newspapers, magazines, and the internet were full of reports about Ning Shi. Thunderbolt Special Agent Unit was still in the long post-production stage and had yet to be released, but Ning Shi had already become extremely popular with just these two works. Her momentum was swift and fierce, and once it was out of control, there was no other female celebrity in the entire entertainment industry that could compare to her popularity. If it was said that Ning Shi was always called Lung Manyun's successor in the past, then now people's evaluations of her words, the student has surpassed the master. The new generation excels the old, the treasure of the film industry, the most talented actress in history, and the second Song Lin. Chapter 1763. Ning Shi's popularity had already reached its peak, but at this moment, in Lin Jiji's office in Shengshi Entertainment's building, the atmosphere was gloomy. There were too many events that required Ning Shi's personal attendance. Some could be declined, but movie premieres, promotions, and major awards couldn't be declined. Ning Shi had already missed all the promotions for Mother, the Golden Orchid and Golden Deer Awards, and even the Golden Luan Awards yesterday. As for the crew of Mother, thanks to Jiang Xingzhou's tolerance and Song Lin's help, it was still acceptable. The Golden Orchid and Golden Deer trophies could be collected by a manager, but the Golden Luan Awards had a rule that the winner had to be there in person to collect the award, or else the trophy wouldn't be given. Although the title of Best Actress would be retained, missing such an important event would leave a bad impression on both the judges and fans. In these 3 months, even if she, as her manager, always thought of perfect reasons for Ning Shi under such circumstances, no matter how perfect the reasons were, they couldn't be excused if she didn't show up for 3 whole months in the office. Lin Jiji's phone and landline never stopped ringing. Xiao Tao was only dealing with the media now, and she personally handled everything else. Looking at the overwhelming entertainment headlines about Ning Shi, the countless invitations from the organizers of the awards, and the scripts and advertisements thrown at her like snowflakes, Lin Jiji sank into a deep sense of helplessness. In the end, she still underestimated Ning Shi. This time, she definitely couldn't suppress it anymore. At this moment, there was an urgent knock on the door. Shengshi Entertainment's general manager, Yi Sudong, pushed open the door with a terrible expression and threw a stack of newspapers on Lin Jiji's desk. Lin Jiji, what the hell are you doing? Is this all you're capable of? Where is she? Where is Ning Shi? All the newspapers and magazines were full of headlines about Ning Shi's absence on various occasions. The media and fans reviewed all Ning Shi's itinerary during this period and found out that Ning Shi had disappeared for 3 whole months. Now all kinds of speculations were flying on the internet. I thought you would at least learn a lesson after the incident with Lung Manyun, but this time? It's like this again. You can't even manage your artists well. What kind of bullshit manager are you? Yi Sudong flew into a rage. It was no wonder that Yi Sudong was so excited. Now, Ning Shi was so popular that almost 90% of the company's profits were in Ning Shi's hands. But at this time, Ning Shi actually disappeared. Not only did she miss so many important occasions, but she also missed all kinds of important advertising cooperation. All these were money. Lu Jingli had already relinquished control of Golden Era to him. Now that he had been promoted from the vice president to the general manager, how could he allow such a huge mistake to happen before he could even secure his position? Facing Yi Sudong's anger, Lin Ji pursed her lips and said, "Sorry." She understood Yi Sudong's anger, but she couldn't tell him the truth. At this moment, she could only say these 2 words. Yi Sudong was even angrier when he saw her like this. What's the use of apologizing? Hurry up and find him. Do you think those investors and important partners have the time to wait for you? Let me tell you, the company doesn't need an artist like her who disregards the company and the rules of the contract. Now, sort out all the scripts and collaborations under Ning Shi's name and give them to me. She would not do it. There are plenty of people who can do it. Chapter 1764. I see. Lin Jiji didn't say anything. Based on Ning Shi's current situation, these contracts could only rot in her hands. Yi Sudong would definitely let other artists replace them in the principle of maximizing profits. Even if Lu Jingli came to say this in person, he would have no choice. If things went on like this, Yi Sudong might soon start to look for a new artist to replace Ning Shi. Otherwise, all the resources in Ning Shi's hands would be wasted. She could wait, but Yi Sudong couldn't. Lin Jiji, I don't care if you can contact her now. Let me tell you, 7 days. If she doesn't show up in 7 days, she doesn't have to come to the company anymore. Yi Sudong threw a tantrum and left. It was late at night when Lin Jiji sorted out all the cooperation materials and scripts. When she passed by Yi Sudong's office, she accidentally heard the ambiguous voices of a man and a woman. She frowned slightly. That woman's voice sounded like a newcomer who joined the company some time ago. It was probably because Ning Shi's style had become popular recently that the company had recruited a lot of newcomers. That newcomer had the best appearance and was chosen according to Ning Shi's style. However, because Ning Shi was too dazzling, this batch of newcomers did not make much of a splash. Now, with such a great opportunity in front of them, no wonder they couldn't wait. This was the way of the entertainment circle. Competition and killing never stopped. Lin Jiji just paused for a moment and soon left as if nothing had happened. Early morning. It was quiet in the military sanatorium on the outskirts of the capital. Lu Tingxiao sat quietly in front of Ning Shi's bed for a whole night. These 3 months were enough for him to do everything he could until he couldn't find anything else to numb himself. Time ticked by. Finally, it was 6 o'clock. It had been 3 months since Ning Shi fell into a coma. In fact, Ning Shi's previous situation couldn't be strictly defined as a vegetable. If she couldn't wake up within 3 months, these 3 months were the most likely time for a patient to wake up. After this time, it was almost impossible for her to wake up again. The girl lay quietly on the bed, seemingly asleep. Little Treasure lay obediently next to her, sleeping peacefully with her. It was as if everything was the same as before, as if they were at home, as if everything was fine in the outside world. However, the cruel reality was that the girl he loved the most might never speak again, never give him any response, and never wake up again. The man gently picked up the girl's hand, gently buried his head in the back of her hand, and murmured, "Xiaoxi. I'm sorry. I may not be as indestructible as you think. Only when you're not by my side do I realize that I'm nothing. Only then did I realize that all my weakness." Creak. The sound of the door being pushed open could be heard. Lu Jingli poked his head out from the doorway. "I knew you'd be here. Brother, you didn't sleep last night, did you? I bought breakfast. Come over and have some." Lu Tingxiao put down the girl's finger and stood up. However, the moment he stood up, he fell backwards without any warning. "Brother," Lu Jingli was scared out of his wits and rushed in. Xiao Bao was also startled awake by the sound. He looked at the man lying on the ground with a face full of terror. Chapter 1765. Help! Help! Doctor! After the chaos, Lu Tingxiao was placed on the hospital bed next door. The Zhuang family was also alerted. Lu Jingli looked at the doctor who was examining Lu Tingxiao with a frown. "What's wrong with my brother? What's wrong with him?" The old expert put down his stethoscope and scolded with a gloomy face. "This is nonsense. How can he waste his body like this? You should ask him what's wrong with him. His stomach is already perforated to this extent. It's been at least 2 months, yet he still hasn't sought medical attention. His body is so deficient. If he stays like this for a few more months, he won't be much better off than the girl lying on the bed next door." Lu Jingli's face was pale and he was about to cry. "Since little Cece fell into a coma, my brother has hardly slept. I've tried my best to keep an eye on him every day. I'm afraid something will happen to him, but I really can't persuade him. I know no one can persuade him. He can't control himself at all." Listening to Lu Jingli's words, the old expert and Zhuang Zongren behind him sighed. Although Zhuang Liang still kept a straight face, there was a trace of worry in his eyes. Especially when he saw Xiaobao staying by his father's bed with a worried look on his face. At the beginning, he was indeed biased against this father and son pair, and even couldn't understand his father's decision. However, during this period of time, he saw Xiaobao's devotion to Ningxi, and he saw Lu Tingxiao quickly become thin and haggard even though he didn't change at all, and even became like this now. The dissatisfaction in his heart dissipated a lot. Xiaoxi's love was not in vain. He was her uncle and her relative, but after all, he hadn't done anything for her, so he didn't have the right to say anything about her choice. Lu Jingli choked with sobs. Actually, I've known for a long time. Although he looks fine on the surface, he could fall at any time if the wind blows. He couldn't hold on any longer. But he held on until now. On the day when Ningxi had been in a coma for 3 months, the last nerve that supported him completely collapsed. During this period, it was not only Ningxi's coma that weighed on him, but also his self-blame and deeply buried regret. All these things were gnawing at his spirit and marrow. Lu Jingli clenched his fists, stood up, and bowed deeply. Please take care of my brother. I'll be back soon. He knew that this was a psychological problem that couldn't be solved by ordinary methods. He had to find a way, otherwise if this went on before little Cici woke up, his brother would have collapsed first. Soon after Lu Jingli left, Lu Tingxiao woke up and the first thing he did was look at the time on his cell phone. Seeing Lu Tingxiao suddenly sit up, the old doctor next to him quickly said with a stern face, "Lie down properly." This old doctor was Dr. Zhao, who had helped him do the paternity test for Ningxi and Xiaobao. Lu Tingxiao frowned. Without even thinking about his physical condition or asking why he was lying here, he said, "I've made an appointment with an expert team to give Xiaoxi another comprehensive examination today." Dr. Zhao said unhappily, "Then you should lie down too. Do you think they won't do the examination without you?" Sorry. Lu Tingxiao didn't argue. Instead, he stopped the drip and walked out of the room. Chapter 1766. I've never seen a patient as disobedient as you. Do you want to die? Dr. Zhao stomped his feet anxiously behind him. Seeing that the patient had quickly disappeared, he had no choice but to follow him next door. Because today was a special day, the Zhuang family agreed to let Lu Chongshan and Yan Rui come over. They also heard the news that their son had fainted. Scared out of their wits, they kept asking about the situation while nervously waiting for the results of the expert's diagnosis of Xiaoxi. "Tingxiao, are you okay? Jing Li said you fainted. What's going on? How many times have I told you to take care of your body? You only know how to talk to Xiaobao. Why don't you know how to set an example for yourself? Don't you feel bad waiting for Xiaoxi to wake up?" "I'm fine. How can I be fine?" Yan Rui kept wiping her tears and glanced at the ward. "How is Xiaoxi? What did the expert say?" Lu Chongshan also asked. Lu Tingxiao stood there quietly. "Wait for the results." Dr. Zhao stood at the door, watching the child standing there with his back straight waiting for the results. He shook his head and sighed, a trace of pity flashing across his eyes. Zhuang Zongren, who was also nervous, frowned when he saw Dr. Zhao sigh. "Old Zhao, why are you sighing? Is Xiaoxi in a bad condition?" Dr. Zhao glanced at Zhuang Zongren and didn't hide it. "It's not optimistic." Zhuang Zongren's face suddenly darkened. A moment later, a group of experts finished a detailed examination, held a small meeting, and finally walked out of the ward. No one dared to speak, holding their breath and waiting for the diagnosis results. The leading expert said solemnly, "During this time, the patient's condition has not changed. Our diagnosis is the same as last time." What? Until now, the result was still the same. Xiaoxi didn't get better at all? Zhuang Zongren held Xiaobao carefully in his arms. He didn't want Xiaobao to be here today, but the child was as stubborn as his father. He couldn't persuade him to leave, so he could only ask hurriedly, "Is it possible for Xiaoxi to wake up?" The leading expert looked awkward. He came in and said in a tactful tone, "With all due respect, the possibility of him waking up within these 3 months is the highest." After 3 months, The possibility of him waking up is very small. The patient's bodily functions will also start to deteriorate step by step. After listening to the results of the expert's consultation, there was a dead silence in the air. Everyone's heart felt like it had fallen into an ice cellar. The expectations that they had been looking forward to all this time fell from the sky and shattered. Lu Tingxiao stood there without saying a word. Facing this result, there was no expression on his face. During this period of time, he had flipped through many medical books and materials and could almost be considered half an expert. The results of the experts were just as he had expected. He already knew that. It was just that he still had to come and hear it in person. Not far away, Lu Jingli had just rushed back when he heard the words of the experts. Then he saw his brother's empty, cold, and lifeless face. It was as if all the vitality would be sucked out in the next second, leaving only an empty shell. Lu Jingli's heart skipped a beat. His fingers clenched a cold object. He took a deep breath and quickly walked over. He pulled the man who was standing there in a daze all the way to a tree not far away from the courtyard and stuffed a recording pen into his hand. "Brother, listen to this. Now, right now, right now." Chapter 1767. Seeing that Lu Tingxiao didn't respond, Lu Jingli was so anxious that he simply pressed the switch and turned on the recording pen. "Ning Shi, hey, you're drinking without waiting for me? Jiang Mai, aren't you going to quit drinking? I'm the one drinking while I'm waiting for you." Ning Shi, "Well, pretend I didn't say anything. Continue drinking. Did you give me some juice?" Jiang Mai, "Nonsense. There's no juice in the bar." It wasn't until Ning Shi's familiar voice came from the recording pen that Lu Tingxiao's attention turned to the recording pen. Lu Jingli breathed a sigh of relief, wiped the sweat on his forehead, and pressed the fast-forward button a few times. Then, Ning Shi's question came from the recording pen. "Let me ask you, that day Lu Tingxiao really kissed me?" Lu Jingli quickly explained, "Brother, do you remember this recording pen? At that time, Jiang Mai had just returned to China, and the crew of The World had a dinner party to welcome him. When the party was over, you went to pick up little Cici. At that time, little Cici was drunk, and Jiang Mai seemed to be interested in little Cici. He directly questioned you about your attitude towards little Cici, and then you kissed little Cici in front of him. Later, Jiang Mai couldn't help but tell little Cici about it, and then little Cici asked Jiang Mai to meet her. At that time, I felt that there must be big gossip in their conversation, and I couldn't help but want to eavesdrop, but you stopped me. However, there were paparazzi eavesdropping in that private room in order to make it big news. Their directors stopped this recording pen for my sake and sent it to me. At that time, you didn't want to use this method to find out about little Cece's privacy, so you didn't listen to it, but I secretly kept it. It's this recording pen." Seeing that Lu Tingxiao's eyes gradually focused, it seemed that he had recalled it. Lu Jingli didn't say anything more and quickly fast-forwarded to the key part. "Ning Shi. Okay, since you asked me, I'll ask you a question too. Ning Shi, let me ask you, if you walked into a room and saw the person you liked was drugged with aphrodisiac, wearing transparent pajamas, and lying on a kg-sized bed covered with red petals, what would you do?" Ning Shi, do you know what Lu Tingxiao would do in such a situation? Ning Shi, he didn't do anything. He comforted me not to be afraid and talked to me to distract me. From beginning to end, he did nothing to disturb me. He just quietly accompanied me through the most helpless and difficult night of my life. Ning Shi, which one do you think is Lu Tingxiao? Not a man? Or do you not like me? Jiang Mai, I'm sure he likes you. Ning Shi, I wasn't sure before, and I didn't dare to be sure. But now, I'm sure that he likes me. Therefore, there is a third possibility. Jiang Mai, what? Hearing this, Lu Tingxiao held his breath, just like Jiang Mai. Then, Ning Shi's soft sigh came from the recording pen. It's not because I'm stupid, but because his level is too high. I'm not surprised at all that I'm attracted to him, and I'm not unwilling either. The moment Ning Shi said this, Lu Tingxiao's expression changed drastically. Countless complicated emotions surged. Then, she heard Jiang Mai's slightly trembling voice. You have feelings for him? Ningxi, although I don't want to admit it and I've been avoiding it for so long, this is the truth. Hearing this, the man held the recording pen in his hand and was stunned for a long time. Chapter 1768. Then came Jiang Mai's extremely agitated question. Ningxi, how much do you know about him? How much do you know about him? You only see the side of him that he pretends to be in front of you. Do you really think that Lu Tingxiao is as gentle and gentlemanly as he appears to be? Do you know that Jia Qingqing died in the wilderness? Do you know what happened to that fat pig, Zhu Xiangqing? Do you know that he sent a plane to induce rain just to ruin a kissing scene? Even the sudden accident in my family. It was all planned by him. Hearing Jiang Mai's question, Lu Tingxiao's face changed dramatically and suddenly became tense. But Jiang Mai, he has never done anything to hurt me. If I am afraid of him, stay away from him, and despise him because of that, it is not fair to him. You can say that I can't distinguish right from wrong, or that I don't know what's good for me. I only know that he is good to me, very good. No one has ever been so good to me like he does. Then, Lu Tingxiao heard the girl's answer, which instantly pulled him back from the edge of the cliff. She said that no one had ever been so good to her like he did. The girl continued to speak. Ningxi, I know what I am like in my heart. Being moved doesn't mean that I have lost my mind. I know what I am doing and what I should do. Ningxi, Jiang Mai, to paraphrase what you said before, how much do you know about me? How much do you know about me? Now you only see the side of me that I let you see in front of you. Do you really think that I am completely like what I appear to be? The recording ended here. Lu Tingxiao's mind trembled violently as he stood stiffly under the lush tree with a blank expression. He finally understood everything from beginning to end. It turned out that she had refused him from the beginning to the end because of the knot in her heart. The so-called person that she really liked was actually just a shield. Lu Jingli looked at the expression on his brother's face, and his eyes slightly teared up. Brother, did you hear that? There is no one else. Little Cici liked you from the beginning. And only you. Lu Tingxiao closed his eyes and squeezed the recording pen hard. Countless memories came flooding in and crazily filled his mind. He recalled Ningxi's proud expression when she said, "The person I like?" He was mighty, domineering, talented, and well-versed in both the pen and the sword, gentle, romantic, resourceful, brave, mature, and steady, with a spirit that could swallow mountains and rivers, unprecedented and unparalleled, as powerful as a thunderbolt, rarely seen in 1,000 years, masterful, capable of overshadowing the moon and putting flowers to shame, captivating fishes and alighting geese, capable of causing the downfall of nations and cities, shocking as a celestial being, treading on 7-colored auspicious clouds. If you knew who he was, you wouldn't think that I was exaggerating. He remembered that she had once said firmly, Lu Tingxiao, actually, I told you from the beginning that I already have someone I like very much. I like it very much. Although I can't be with him due to certain reasons, he will always be in my heart for the rest of my life. No one can replace him. There is no extra space. No matter how good that person is, no matter how perfect he is, he can't. Do you understand? He remembered that one night not long after she rejected him, he was at the door of the private room and heard her singing inside. I miss you so much, but I lie to myself. I miss you so much, so I keep it a secret. I miss you so much, so I hide it deep in my heart. He also remembered that she had once posted such a post on her WeChat moments. I could have tolerated the darkness if I had never seen the sun, but now, the sun has made my loneliness even more desolate. He remembered that she had once said that he was her sunshine. Chapter 1769. That person, the person he had always thought she loved, the person he thought was more suitable for her from the beginning to the end, turned out to be himself. There were so many flaws, so many traces. Why didn't he find out until now? the man sat on a wooden chair, deeply buried his head and motionless. Lu Jingli didn't disturb him, but walked away and left him alone for a while. After a long time, the man stared blankly at the recording pen, then took out his cell phone and made a call in a hoarse voice. "Hello, Miss Lin, please prepare a copy of Ning Shi's autograph for me. I'll ask my assistant to pick it up later." Then he immediately made a second call. "Go to my office now and get something for me. In the last drawer of my desk, there's..." Lu Jingli saw the man under the tree make the call for a long time and then continue to sit there quietly. In Ning Shi's ward, the atmosphere was unprecedentedly solemn. At this time, Zhuang Kuo and Zhuang Rongguang also arrived. Zhuang Kuo was crying in front of Ning Shi's bed and Zhuang Rongguang's face was also full of grief. Yan Rui couldn't bear to look at the girl in the hospital bed. "It's all our Lu family's fault, but this child has been implicated." Master Xianjing said she had unparalleled luck. She used up all her luck. In exchange for Xiaobao's life, Lu Chongshan knew it was useless to say anything, so he could only stand there in silence and face it. Zhuang Zongren let out a long sigh. This girl didn't even know that Xiaobao was her own flesh and blood, but she did so much for this child. Her temperament, Zhuang Liaoyuan's face darkened. Now that things have become like this, it's useless to say anything more. No matter what happens to Xiaoxi, we will take care of her for the rest of her life. With that, he glanced at Yan Rui and Lu Chongshan. "You've seen Xiaoxi's condition. We've received your guilt these days, but it's not necessary. Let's call it a day." Xiaoxi's condition was obvious. She was basically unable to wake up for the rest of her life. What was the point of asking Lu Tingxiao to spend the rest of his life in a vegetative state? Time was short and they could do this because of guilt, but how could they withstand such a long time? Just when everyone was silent with a solemn expression on their faces, the sound of footsteps came from behind. Lu Tingxiao and Lu Jingli walked in one after the other, followed by Lin Jiji and Lu Tingxiao's assistant, Xing Feng. They didn't know why, but when they looked at Lu Tingxiao now, they felt that he was a little different from before. Lu Tingxiao walked straight into the house, then looked at everyone in the house and said, "Since everyone is here today, I hope everyone can witness something for me." "Witness? What is it?" Everyone looked at each other, not knowing what Lu Tingxiao was going to do. Even Lu Jingli didn't know what he was going to do, but he could vaguely guess. Xing Feng. Lu Tingxiao called his assistant. Cheng Feng quickly stepped forward, took out a square black box from his bag, and carefully handed it over to Lu Tingxiao. Then everyone saw that Lu Tingxiao took the small black velvet box and walked to Ning Shi's bed. Chapter 1770. The man's slender fingers opened the box. Inside was a pair of male and female rings. It was a very simple style, and the letters XX could be vaguely seen engraved on the inner layer of the ring. In the next second, under everyone's shocked gazes, Lu Tingxiao knelt down on one knee and put the male ring on his left ring finger. Then, he gently put the other ring on Ning Shi's ring finger. This is... Zhuang Liaoyuan and Zhuang Zongren were both shocked. Zhuang Ke and Zhuang Rongguang stood there in a daze. Yan Rui and Lu Chongshan were also stunned speechless. After a moment of surprise, Lu Jingli's gaze softened, revealing an expression as if he had expected it. Lu Tingxiao lowered his head and kissed the girl's finger that was wearing the ring. His cold and hoarse voice sounded in the quiet ward in everyone's ears. "I am willing to love her and be loyal to her. No matter if she is poor, sick, or in hardship, I will not leave her. I will follow her for life until death. Ning Shi, my only wife in this life." The sunlight shone through the window lattice. The man who knelt on one knee was swearing his oath alone. His expression was so devout that it was as if he was facing all of his beliefs and his life. Zhuang Ke's eyes reddened and tears fell as she sobbed in a low voice. Everyone else was shocked and stunned at the beginning, but now, their eyes were all red. A moment later, Cheng Feng walked over. "Boss, this is done as well." What Cheng Feng handed over were two bright red booklets. Shockingly, they were marriage certificates. After Cheng Feng received Lu Tingxiao's call, he immediately prepared all the information in the shortest time possible. Then, he found his connections in the Civil Affairs Bureau and settled everything. No matter how biased Zhuang Liaoyuan was against Lu Tingxiao, he was speechless at this moment. He really didn't expect Lu Tingxiao to do this. Yan Rui and Lu Chongshan were shocked at the beginning, but in the end, they had expected it. Forget it, they should have known this would happen. Yan Rui looked at the bright marriage certificate and her heart was filled with regret. If they hadn't been so stubborn back then and let these two children be together earlier, their family would have been harmonious and beautiful now. Things wouldn't have turned out this way. However, it was too late to say anything. When Xiaobao saw the thing in Qingfeng's hand, he couldn't stay still. He immediately broke free from Zhuang Zongren's embrace and quickly ran in front of Qingfeng. He raised his small head and eagerly stared at him. Qingfeng hurriedly squatted down and handed the two certificates to him. The little guy held it carefully in his hands and looked at it over and over again like it was a treasure. Lu Jingli chuckled as he walked over and held the little fellow in his arms. He glanced at Zhuang Rongguang on purpose and said, "Xiaobao, are you happy? In the future, if anyone says that little Cici is not your mother, you will hang this thing around your neck every day. One in front and one in front. Let them have a good look." Little Bao nodded forcefully when he heard this, and then he held the two certificates tightly in his arms. Outside the house, Lin Jiji, Lu Jingli, and Lu Tingxiao were chatting under a pergola not far away. Lin Jiji subconsciously glanced at the wedding ring on Lu Tingxiao's finger. She was in a daze and her heart was filled with emotions. He didn't expect to witness such a scene with his own eyes today. He didn't expect that the two of them would actually get married under such circumstances. "Agent Lin, it's been hard on you. I'm afraid the sky is about to be turned upside down on your side, right? Little Cici is really amazing." Lu Jingli smiled bitterly. "You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.